Hi everyone in cloud computing, welcome to the third episode of the Cloud Computing Training Show with Brad Nelson and internationally recognised and world's #1 cloud industry expert and thought leader, David Linthicum. This show is sponsored by Nelson Hilliard, cloud computing recruitment specialists, placing great people in cloud, IoT, Fintech and AI. In this week's show, David and I will be talking about the best practice for managing one's cloud computing career. Hi Dave, how's it going? Good to see you, and good to see that you're back in one piece from the shiny lights of Vegas.
Yeah, I officially have Vegas fatigue. I've been to Vegas seriously probably 1,000 times in my career. There was Comdex, and there was the IBM shows and the HP shows and VMworld, and pretty much anything that happens in the IT industry is going to happen in Vegas. And here I am years later. I stayed in every hotel. I've done everything. I've seen every show, and I'm ready to move on. Ready to move on to some other city, like this place called Melbourne, Australia. I've heard so much about. It's probably worth a visit at some point.
Not a bad place. Yeah, no, exactly. And it'd be great to get you over here. And I think we just discussed this in one of our the Cloud Computing Australia show, didn't we? It'd be wonderful to get you over down under next year or something, doing the David Linthicum Down Under tour.
Yes, I'm sure it'll be well attended by 3 Australians that are probably more happy to see a beer than me, but that'd be fine.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, I think this is a really interesting show this week. I mean, every show we've done and this is the third one, but every show we've done so far has been really interesting, and you've been getting some great feedback on the training shows and the C-suite shows and the Australia shows, haven't you?
Yeah, everybody's hungry for cloud computing content out there. Cloud computing podcasts, video casts, and the YouTube's a great platform. Kind of got reacquainted with the YouTube in the last 6 months or so, just learning things, how to build drones and how to do things that I don't know. And people are out there hungry for information in terms of cloud computing and where it's going. And then the biggest question I get is, where do I get training? How should I get training? What training should I get? Those sorts of things are very important. Well, I think that ultimately this is about you being true. And we talked about this during the last show as well, true to yourself and your skills and your desires. I think that people often make the mistake here in moving after a particular shiny object. And we talk about the shiny object syndrome. So, this is about understanding what your capabilities are and how to move it forward. But, right now we're in a market where there's probably 50 jobs, and I think I changed that from last time we talked, that's chasing one candidate. And so therefore it's very tempting for people to kind of move over into certain spaces. So my advice is, number one, is write down your objectives and your goals. Write down what you want to be in 3 years. Do you want to be an AWS architect? Is that good enough? Because you'll have to move on to something else after a time. If you're getting what I call tactical skills, if you're getting Azure development and AWS administration, that's going to change over time. That doesn't mean it's going to go away, but it's going to be not as hot in the next 3 years than it is right now. And then if you're going to get a tactical skill, you're willing to get additional tactical skills so you can keep up in the market. And that's going to be tough to do. And I did that early in my career. I was a C developer and then became Java developer and JavaScript, and did distributed objects and things like that. And I kept moving my tactical skills to whatever was paying the best at the time. And I had real good relationships in the market, and then became an architect where I kind of rised above all that and really became about configuring things and planning things and actually building particular systems. So, and the other thing is strategic skills, and that's different because those are typically going to be evergreen. So in other words, if you're going to be an architect now and you're going to basically be a cloud architect, you have to evolve over time. You have to understand an eclectic array of technologies. Architects have to understand everything and anything. They're jack of all trades, master of none. But that's the way you want them. And ultimately, that's going to carry you a little further. If that doesn't interest you, then it's not. It's something you're going to be miserable doing. And it's also going to pay a bit more. So you need to think exactly how you want to run your career in terms of reinventing it every couple of 3 years, or something that is truly going to be a career you can kind of follow for the rest of your life, and something that's going to change and morph over time, just like everything else in technology. But it's not going to be as a wild ride as particular tactical skills, certifications, things like that.
That's great, and I think that's a very concise answer. I mean, I want to just flick back to when you started with that answer. That you said write things down, and I think that is a really poignant thing for me. With every person that I speak to, every candidate that I speak to, particularly that's looking for the next move, or looking to prove themselves, I guess, to the recruiters or the team, or looking to how they're going to demonstrate their skills to a potential employer. It's writing things down is really key. Now, I do two things. One of them is I get them to do a synopsis and a performance paragraph about themselves. They're putting themselves through a process so they can actually identify within themselves of what they've done, the outputs they've done, and write down how it makes them feel. And then after that, I get them to write a letter to their future self.
Oh, I love that.
And then get the future self to reply.
Okay, that's a little weird, but
yes.
I guess it follows on.
Yeah, well, it kind of works. So they understand whether, yeah, they look at me and go, sorry, have I called a recruitment company? Was this some sort of mad therapist or something?
Well, I mean, if I wrote somebody my future self and I got a response, then I would get stock prices and just play the game.
Yeah, well, I had a conversation.
Make some money.
Well, we had. Well, I had this conversation, and a week goes by, and I said, "Look, we'll schedule another call a week later." So we schedule a call a week later, and he said, "My future self replied," and I said, "What did he say?" He just said, "You idiot," in big capital letters. And I said to the guy, I said, "You really haven't taken this seriously, have you?" So it was.
Well, it's a good exercise.
I liked his humour.
Yeah, it is good humor, but I mean, it's also a good exercise if you look at where you're looking to go, because you can't. I mean, even if in everything we do, whether it's business, personal lives, things like that, careers, you can't have an understanding of the 100 things you need to do this year if you don't have an understanding of where you're looking to go. You know, what training you need, what books you need to read, interpersonal relationship skills and things like that. And it just drives me nuts when, I talk to somebody and they say, I want to be an executive, and they're 24 years old. And I say, okay, well, that's great. Then how are you going to be an executive in the next, I want to be an executive now. Well, what things are you going to work on to become an executive? No, you don't understand. I want to be an executive. That doesn't make any difference. That doesn't make any sense. So it's like someone who tells me something, I want to solve some social problem, which is great. But what actually do you want to have happen? What are the measurable things that are going to occur between you declaring you want to solve a problem and actually the problem being solved? And the same thing with a career. If I'm looking to advance to this stage or this level or be this, this kind of a high up person in a particular company, you're not going to get that job right out of college. You're going to have to work for it, and you need to kind of plan a path as to how you're going to get there, and everything you need to take, and things you need to understand, and objectives. And by the way, you're going to get setbacks. I'm sure you're going to get fired along the way once or twice. You're going to get laid off and things like that. And you got to be able to recover from those. But if you have the goal in front of you and you're marching toward it, and it's an achievable goal, then that's going to be a more direct thing than anything else. And by the way, you can tell people who are interviewing you. I'm very impressed when say, what ultimately they want to be. If they'll tell you, because I've been thinking about this for years. This is something I write down every year. I've been moving in this direction. I think I've done a great job in getting to where I am now, which is going to move me down the path to the certain objective. And the same thing with cloud skills. In other words, what tactical things you need to do to get some strategic position, whether you want to be an executive, whether you want to, work for a vendor, work for an enterprise company, all these things really need to be decided, before you start moving forward. If you're making tactical one-off decisions just kind of based on opportunities that are in front of you, that's not a way to manage your career. That's just you moving off in different directions. There are ultimately going to be mistakes you're going to have to reset versus you moving after your strategy. And by the way, that means turning down six-figure jobs from time to time just because they're not the right thing for you. And the other thing I recommend is don't work for jerks. So life's too short. You can spot the jerks pretty quick. Don't work for those people. No, exactly.
That's great advice. Great advice. And I think you're right. You need a timeline. You need a timeline of what you're going to do and at what point you're trying to achieve that goal as well. I think that's really important. And that way you're not filling those spaces with something that's a waste of time that's not congruent with the rest of your career.
Yeah, you got to have a plan, and you have to be consistent to stay on path of the plan. You're going to get off track from time to time. But if you have the plan, you have the objectives, it's going to put you back on track. And like I said, we talked about the shiny object thing last year. It's easy to chase the shiny objects in the world of technology, but you need to figure out how that shiny object is going to exist in the context of a larger career goal.
Yeah, exactly. I saw there was a profile on LinkedIn or something that sent me an invitation. There was a blockchain headhunter. Now that was a slightly shiny object in a blocky kind of way.
Yeah, that would definitely be. I'm just going to head and take it, and it'll be a Docker headhunter next week.
Well, look, Dave, thanks again for another enthralling training show. Thoroughly enjoyed it again, and yeah, it's great to have you back from Vegas, safe and sound.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back from Vegas. Looking forward to a show next week.
And now you're breaking stuff. You're that excited. You're that excited to be back and on the training show. You're breaking stuff. Yeah,
I'm throwing stuff around the room. And yeah, as soon as we hang up, I'm going to get drunk and start throwing things around. That's what I do at night.
throw one of the Mac screens out of the bedroom window. You know, rock and roll.
You rock and roll. That's right.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Dave. Really appreciate your time again. Thanks for being part of the Cloud Show. And remember, everyone, to share this, like it, comment, subscribe, get the word out there for cloud computing training. David Linthicum's there to answer questions on Twitter, and you can subscribe to obviously this channel so you don't miss out on the cloud computing news and obviously the cloud computing shows. David's on Twitter, as I said, and that's at David Linthicum. And you can also tweet me, which is at Nelson_Hilliard. So thanks again for watching, everyone.